Hi everybody and welcome back to another Legends of Runeterra video. So we just barely got the Nasus reveal. Over on Twitter they have the cinematic trailer as well as a little bit more information, like a new keyword that we're going to talk about in a second. I'm just going to stay here on Mobalytics. You guys should go over and check out the cinematic. I'm not going to react to that today. I will say that I think that Nasus's level up animations are a little bit worse than Renekton's. They're just more tame. Renekton kind of gets that crazy sort of insane vibe, which I think is what he actually is in the lore. I'm not a lore expert, but Nasus is definitely more tame in his level up animation, a little bit more sane. So anyway, yeah, we have this new slay mechanic. Slay mechanic is basically you get some sort of buff for or you can activate abilities through killing other units with spells, with damage, direct strikes, like single combat. Basically, I think it covers anything but obliterate spells, which don't count as kills. So there may be a couple of other exceptions, but for the most part, if you use a spell, a strike, or if you attack with your units and kill the enemy, it counts as slaying a unit. So that's important here because Nasus is fearsome. He's a 6-drop, a 2/2, which initially seems understated. He gets +1/+1 for each unit you've slain this game. So every time you kill a unit, he's going to get +1/+1. So he's got the potential to come out on turn 6 as a much higher statted champion. And then when you level him up, I strike for 10 plus damage. So immediately we're kind of seeing some sort of vibes here. There, Vi stands or V stands for vibe. Anyway, we see a lot of similarities between the two. He needs to strike for 10 plus damage, so we can kind of cheat that out with combat strikes if we really wanted to pair him with Demacia, something like that. But it seems like the most likely home we're going to see for Nasus is in the Shadow Isles, as it kind of offers us the most potential to buff him up and to synergize with his followers with the slay mechanic, because it also counts on your own units. If you use kind of like the self-sacrificing archetype of the Shadow Isles, it counts as slaying units and definitely goes into helping Nasus level up and become a little bit stronger. All right, so when he levels up, we get Spell Shield, and then the same ability, I have +1/+1 for each unit you've slain this game, and we get a new one, enemies have -1 attack. So he becomes just a little bit better, just a little stronger. I would say he does not have the most powerful level up here. Spell Shield is definitely a bonus. The -1 is definitely a bonus, especially if you got a lot of Fearsome blockers. He's coming out on turn 6, so Fearsome tends to be more of an aggro style deck, and so maybe a little bit late for a Fearsome deck comprised around Nasus. Could be wrong about that. We can kind of compare this to Nocturne just a little bit. We don't see Nocturne level up a whole lot. We don't see a whole lot of Nocturne wins when he's on the board or included in decks. So I almost expect it to be similar to Nocturne. Nocturne comes out on turn 4, Nasus on turn 6. So keep that in mind. All right, and then of course he is an Ascended champion, so he gets another level up because of the Sun Disc. Ascended, Nasus, Fearsome, Spell Shield, the same. And everything's exactly the same, except now enemies have -3, -0. So we kind of go into that more fearsome aspect. One thing that we need to talk about very briefly is the Buried Sun Disc. I said its viability and strength is going to be directly related to how easy it's going to be to level up these Shurima champions. So we have a mana 4 champion, 5 champion, 6 champion, and now whatever Azir is going to be. I expect him to be more expensive. I could be wrong about that, but he kind of is giving Aurelion Sol sort of vibes as 10 cost champion, right? We'll see if he's that expensive. I kind of doubt he's going to be less expensive than a 4-drop, but we'll have to wait and see. But it definitely affects the viability of the Sun Disc, just because we're getting. Let's go down and look at it really quickly. It should be here at the bottom, right? So Buried Sun Disc, when an Ascended ally levels up, advance me 10 rounds, which is, seeming to be a little bit more difficult than we had anticipated. So what turn are we actually going to be reliably getting this Buried Sun Disc, leveled up if we include, I mean, we could potentially include all four of the Shurima champions in the deck, but like maybe Ascended Rise is kind of the way to go here. I really don't know. It definitely affects these guys coming out on later turns. The the potential to actually get the Buried Sun Disc to become the Restored Sun Disc. So we'll see how easy it is. It'll be fun to play around with it for sure, and I'm going to make decks around it. But maybe a little bit harder than we realize. All right, so here this next card is going to be Nasus's Siphoning Strike, or Siphoning Strike, the main deckable card. An ally strikes a unit. If it dies, grant ally champions everywhere +2/+2. So yeah, we do get a little bit of synergy here with other champions, which is interesting. So immediately you see a strike, you think of things like Demacia. So Fiora, Garen. This actually even synergizes a little bit with Swain, just because combat strikes count as combat damage. And anyway, it's a 5-drop slow, or 5-cost slow speed spell, which definitely limits its use. Very interruptible, costs quite a bit. We do, however, buff our champions, which again is kind of good for something like Fiora. I don't know how well this is going to work in a Fiora deck, but we do get a lot of synergy for Fiora. We get, you know, the vulnerable. She's already got Challenger, but a lot of those vulnerable spells are also decreasing the attack of the enemies. So there's quite a bit of support for Fiora. So maybe we get a Shurima Fiora deck with these strikes and vulnerable spells. So kind of interesting here. Overall, I think this is going to have to be included in a very specific deck archetype that works with buffing champions like Fiora. I don't think you're going to include this in other decks. Could be wrong about this, but of course you'll have Nasus's Siphoning Strike if you include Nasus anyway. All right, Bakai Reaper, a 1-drop, a fearsome unit. When you slay a unit, grant me +1/+0. So this is very similar to other 1-drops that we have in the game, that we grant them permanent buffs when they meet certain conditions. So we've got things like the Greenglade Caretaker, we've got the Star Shepherd, there may be others. Feyblade Twirler is a 2-drop, but very similar to that sort of style. It's a fearsome unit coming out on turn 1 with 2 health, which is kind of nice. We're going to be guaranteed to get 1 damage onto the enemy nexus turn 1, pretty much every time. A lot of times they don't even have fearsome blockers by turn 3. And so if we have the potential to kill units now this, it does seem kind of counterintuitive, because we're going to get more value out of this later on in the game when we can use spells and use our units to end up killing units. So I don't know if this card is actually going to fit into a Slay deck, just because it seems kind of like late game, maybe like it's just not doing enough for us. It's got to be out on the board, I believe, when you slay a unit. Well, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just is granted. It doesn't say it has to see it. When you slay a unit, grant me +1/+0. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't even have to be on the board, so he just gets more and more powerful as we go. I mean, he's almost certainly got to be out on the board. It's a 1-drop, right? I have +1/+1 for each unit you've slain this game. Yeah, I think he's got to be out on the board. It's worded differently. Now we could put it out and just leave it out, and then it could be a potential atrocity finisher. That's kind of what I've done with the Star Shepherd. So kind of interesting. If we have a lot of slay mechanics or a lot of ways to kill units in our deck, it's not going to be out of the realm of possibility to get him to a very high stat and be able to finish off the game with an atrocity. All right, Rampaging Bakai. Overwhelm. Play. If you've slain 4+ units this game, an enemy and I strike each other. All right, so how often first is this going to be able to happen by turn 5? I think in this particular archetype, if you're building around this sort of concept, it's not going to be too hard. There are cards, multiple cards in the Shadow Isles that have the potential to kill a lot of cards at once that you can play before turn 5. Things like 5-cost spells like Withering Well. We've got the box as well. There's units that deal damage. So, I mean, the potential to actually get this ability off, I don't think is going to be particularly hard. I think in some instances it won't. But for the most part, if we're building around Slay mechanic, you're going to be able to get this ability off. Now, secondly, he's an Overwhelm with 4/6, and he's striking an enemy, right? So he's going to be able to survive the strike, which is important. But his Overwhelm stat is a little bit weak for a 5-drop unit. It's only 4. This is very similar to the Sailor. See if we can find her real quick. Where are you at? I think I just passed over her. There she is. The Scout. So play Predict. If you pick a landmark, grant me elusive. Very similar stat line to this card, where we're getting kind of this aggressive and attack buff with elusive, but she's only got 2 attacks, so we're not dealing a whole lot of damage. The same thing can be said of this rampaging Bakai. It's got a very good ability with not a very good attack stat to actually buff it in order and or not buff it, but in order to hit the Nexus. So overall, I don't think this card is going to be very good unless we have ways to buff it. And a 5-drop with 4 health or 4 attack that's dealing overwhelm damage just isn't that good. He's clearing out a unit for sure, but like how much is this going to matter that he has overwhelm? So anyway, Bakai Rampage. I hate how they're introducing these skills as new cards. It's kind of annoying. It's like they're cheating us. Same thing with this one. This is another token spell. All right, Sanctum Conservator. We've got Fearsome and 8-drop. Play, if you've slain 13 plus units this game, kill all enemy followers, then summon a copy of me. Alright, so first of all, this is an 8-drop epic card, so we automatically know that it's not viable in any deck. I'm just kidding. I really don't know. Because this could be. It has a decent effect, and we're also getting an additional unit out of it, right? So we're killing all of the followers, all the enemy followers, and we're summoning another of these units that's fearsome. So they're almost certainly going to have to block with their champions if they have it out, because that 16 damage is going to be very hard for them to deal with. So maybe this card actually fits into a deck. By turn 8, if you are running these Slay cards very similar to this Rampaging Bakai, I think we're going to be able to meet this level up, or this, play condition. If not, then we're just breaking out our hands with an 8-cost card. Again, I don't know if this is good. And it's an 8-drop as well, so there's potential Lissandra synergy as well. And she's got a lot of tools in her arsenal, weapons in her arsenal, I guess, spells and things that can deal a lot of damage very fast and could potentially work with this Sanctum Conservator as an 8-drop too. So potential synergy with Lissandra. It's really hard to tell how easy it is to kill these units though. All right, Spiritfire, a 7-cost burst speed spell. So let's see, what do we got with this one? So potential Heimerdinger synergy, just because we have Flash of Brilliance creating cards within Shurima. There aren't a lot of 7-drops from Shurima. Actually, there is one here that we talked about already, right? Ascended's Rise, that would just completely break out your hand in a Heimerdinger deck. I don't know how viable that is, but just keep that in mind. We're producing this with Flash of Brilliance if for some reason you decide to run this with Piltovers on. Give enemies -2 attack this round, and at round end, deal 2 to me this round. Interesting. So this is actually a very defensive card that you want to probably play on your attack phase. So I wonder if we've kind of reached the end of aggro meta at this point. You can play this on turn 4 in an aggro deck and completely destroy pretty much the enemy's entire board, which is very useful. So I see this teching against aggro decks. Give enemies -2. So actually, because you're giving them -2 as well, it works for it's burst speed too. Wow, burst speed. Yeah, so this is like a straight up aggro counter. I think this is actually a very good card in certain metas. Give enemies -2 and round in, deal 2 to me this round. So 1, you're going to be reducing the amount of damage you're taking. So this is like a control stall card as well, and then you're going to be killing units as well. I actually think this is a pretty good card. This synergizes with a lot of Shadow Isles champions as well, such as Thresh. It works really well with Thresh. Probably Kindred. That's another thing where we may be getting Kindred as the next champion, and the champion coming from Shadow Isles. It seems like the Slay mechanic would work very well within Kindred and Shadow Isles, so I won't be surprised if we see Kindred having some sort of Slay mechanic. But yeah, this works well in Shadow Isles and control decks, I think, in general. All right, Rite of Calling. So this is very similar to Renekton's Rite of Dominance. Yeah, Rite of Dominance. We have kill an ally or destroy one of your mana gems to draw a champion. So very similar sort of conditions here. We kill an ally, we draw, or we destroy a mana gem. So there is potential like synergy within mana ramp decks with this sort of card. Now, here's a question as well that we don't really know. Does this delay us? It says destroy a mana gem. We don't really know if this delays us a turn. So if we'll get like the mana gem back, or if it actually destroys it. So the most that we can get at the end point of the game is if it's, you know, nine mana gems, if we end up destroying one. Has anyone actually confirmed that? I'm not for sure. I haven't heard anything. And then on the flip side, then if we use something like Catalyst of Aeons, it says grant of a mana gem. So when we get to turn 10 and we've played Catalyst of Aeons, do we have kind of this invisible 11th mana gem that doesn't get used, right? Very interesting. There are some things like that that I think mechanics in the game that we don't fully understand. So we'll have to, I don't know if this has been confirmed or not. We'll have to wait and see, but again, this can work in Shadow Isles. We can kill a unit. This works for leveling up Nasus. Now you guys may be thinking Undying again, but Undying typically isn't run with champions. So the kind of draw a champion is interesting is for a 0 cost spell, but Undying generally don't run champions, and maybe we do now. Maybe we do. Maybe we run Renekton or something, or Nasus with them now. So could be. Undying Nasus Atrocity decks. I don't really know. I think this is an okay card in Shadow Isles decks, though. This could work very well with ephemeral decks as well, where we can get very good use out of like the ephemeral units. It's a slow speed spell, which means that we can't use it during combat, so that does make it a little bit worse. It'd probably be overpowered if we could do that, though. All right, let's go on to Weight of Judgment. Deal 2 to a champion or 7 to a follower. So this is basically, deal 2. Okay, so we do get a little bit of flexibility here. I don't know that 2 to a champion is doing enough to actually for 4 mana. That's pretty weak. And then 7 to a follower almost seems like overkill. We're 4 cost vengeance to a follower, a 4 cost kill a follower. How good is that? It's actually hard to tell. I think it's okay. What this actually screams to me is Swain. Damaging units. Potential Swain synergy. Yeah, I don't think that this is going to be run over something like Vengeance. Or how about like a 5 cost fast speed Grasp of the Undying? Is it better than that? Because we deal more damage to champions. Yeah, I think Grasp is actually better than this card if we're running kind of a Shurima Shadow Isles deck. But if we run something like Shurima Swain, maybe this card starts to make a little bit more sense. I don't know. All right, Ruinous Path, a 2 cost slow speed spell. This is like Roiling Sands, but everything's destroyed, I think. So a slow speed spell, draw 1. If you've slain a unit this round, draw 2, drain 2 from your enemy nexus. All right. So a slow speed spell. So this is not going to be a burst speed finishing spell, but I think at the end of the game, or you could kind of look at this as being a slow speed, very similar to Doom Beast, I guess. If we're running a Slay deck, I think it's going to be fairly easy to have slain a unit every round. And then just in the course of blocking and attacking as well, we have the potential to activate this card. Draining the Nexus is a pretty strong ability for 2 mana, and we also get to draw 1. Like I said, kind of similar to the Doom Beast because we're passing over initiative when we use a slow speed spell. So, and there's not really a way to interact with it either because you're not targeting one of your units, right? So it is a slow speed spell with minimal interactability. Basically, the only things that can stop it are going to be Deny or Nopify. So they're going to have to be running Ionia. So actually, I think this is a pretty good card, even if it is slow speed. We're still drawing a card, even if we haven't slain a unit, so that gives us a little bit of insurance for this card, so it doesn't completely break us out. We draw a card, and then if we have slain a unit, we drain 2 from the enemy nexus. So I actually think this is a pretty good card. I like it. Seems pretty fair and balanced, if you ask me. All right, and that's about it here for these cards today. We get some pretty interesting ones. I think overall, the actual unit followers that we got aren't very good. Sanctum Conservator actually could be kind of good. I don't know. We're still gonna have to build decks around it, and I think Nasus is just okay. I like Renekton a little bit better. And a lot of these spells actually I think are going to be pretty good. Spiritfire I like, Runa's Path I like, Rite of Calling could be okay as well. Um, and then Siphoning Strike in certain decks as well. So overall, I think the power level of these cards aren't as strong as cards that we have gotten in previous reveals the past couple of days. But overall, there's some interesting mechanics here that we're going to be able to use. I think we're going to be getting Kindred as the last champion. It would seem that Kindred would match very well with Nasus and this sort of slain and drain and sort of kill concept here. So we'll see if we get Kindred tomorrow or the next day. Pretty excited about this. Tell me what you guys think. What kind of decks do you see Nasus fitting into? What kind of decks are you excited to build around Nasus? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks.